So what are some tips every beginner should know before starting to invest in real estate? What's going on, team? It's Ricky with TechButt Solutions. I got Nick Palladino here, and as some of you guys might know, we've been proactively flipping properties here in the Arizona market. Right now, we have a total of 6 projects. So we have 3 together of house flips. He's renovating his current property. That's the 4th one. The 5th one is one of my rentals. We're renovating as well. Again, he's overseeing all of that. And then I have another property in Scottsdale that I guess still hasn't sold. But we're not talking about that. I wanted to ask Nick some questions on the spot on things I think every beginner real estate investor should know. So again, if you guys learned something new in this video, please make sure to drop a thumbs up. And if you have any specific questions you want us to answer for our next real estate video, comment those down below. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what is one of the biggest mistakes you see home buyers making right now?
That's a really good question. By the way, none of these questions he's asking I actually have no idea. The biggest mistake I see is people looking for the perfect deal, like waiting on the sidelines when there's never going to be, or it's never at least going to feel like there's going to be a perfect opportunity to invest. So I always tell my clients is, if you have the money, if you have the down payment, if you have the pre-qualification in order to purchase a property, get into it. Like trying to wait for the market to drop or trying to wait for the perfect dip, or even sometimes the perfect property, is counterproductive and just makes things even more difficult. I had clients looking in early 2020 or mid to early 2020 that said the market was going to drop in 2021. Now look at the market, they lost about 33% of their investment, in a sense, if they're getting 33% appreciation on a property they never bought. That's the way I look at it. So if you guys are eligible and you can purchase a property, I would say don't sit on the sidelines. If you have a trusty agent, if you have a good lender, and you have a good team that you're working with, then just go for it.
I do have to say, kind of just piggybacking off of that idea, I really like when he said that you never know that you have a good deal until, sometime after. And I always find myself talking about that property that I bought in 2015, my first property. I bought for $170,000 and is now worth over $400,000. Yep. It wasn't until years later that I was like, oh wow, that was a really smart choice for me to make.
Yep.
At the end of the day, I can't predict the future, right? So why pretend to?
Yep.
One of the things that you need to understand is, although it's viewed as a very challenging thing of potentially buying a house, learning what it is that it takes to actually buy property, meaning that getting pre-qualified with your income, with your credit score, with your overall money that you need as a down payment. If you're actually interested in buying your first property, I would just say take the leap, start working with the lender and see what it is that you need to work towards. Maybe you might not be ready now, but at least you have a blueprint on what it is that you need to work on to eventually get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, same thing in 2019. I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I making a good investment? And then look, even 2 years ago, I'm like, wow, like, I'm so glad that was probably one of the best investments I ever made in my life. And I bet you if you go ask any real estate investor that has purchased properties over 5 years ago, it has been a good decision and they do not regret it. So in long-term real estate, I always say is going to appreciate.
All right, and going off of kind of that question of what I said, or the answer that I said of, what is it that you need to qualify? Does someone need a lot of money saved to buy their first house? The reason I'm saying this is because I'm sure a lot of you might have the income history, as in the 2-year work history, might have the credit score, but maybe you don't have all the money saved.
Yeah.
So does a first-time home buyer or a home buyer always need 10, 5, 20% to put down?
No, so that's a great question. I'm glad you asked, because this is probably one of the most common questions that I get asked personally. I honestly have noticed from a real estate agent perspective, a lot of the biggest holdups in getting pre-qualified is actually work history. You don't need a large down payment. One of the biggest things is going to be having a steady and at least like a 1 to 2-year work history ideally for most lenders. If you have that, you don't need a whole lot of a down payment. I know a lot of my clients right now are, one of them's 3% down, one of them's 5% down, one of them has gift documentation as well if you're doing an FHA loan, which is very popular. I think you did FHA. Yep. You can get gift documentation as well to assist with that down payment. So I actually have 2 FHA clients. One's closing tomorrow, the other one's closing next week. They both got gift documentation to help them with the down payment. So you don't need a whole lot of money. If you have that work history, that is one of the most important things. You can have a decent credit score as well, but you don't need a whole lot of a down payment. And that's what scares a lot of people away. It's a little bit different if you're investing, especially if you're investing out of state. You do need a little bit of a higher down payment, but there's a whole nother video that I can talk about on that topic. But if you're just getting a first-time home buyer that you're going to live in it, owner occupied, you don't need a whole lot of money whatsoever.
All right, I like that. And the last question, this is kind of like an in-between. How do you, because not only are you a real estate agent, but you're also a real estate investor, but you're also a property owner.
Yeah.
How is it that you differentiate a property worth owning and renting out versus flipping? What is the difference in criteria?
That's a really good question. I actually had no one really ever ask me that. We're actually...
Until today.
We have a property that got sent to us last week. I went and walked it 2 days ago. It's in Florence, Arizona. And I was just like thinking about the numbers on that. And I'm like, wow, this would make a great rental property. One of the things that I look for in rental properties as opposed to flipping is, first of all, are we getting this with enough margin where, we're going to make 80K on this as opposed to, we're only going to make 10K on it. That's going to have a big impact, because if we're only going to make 10K, it just makes more sense to potentially hold that property. But if we're going to make like 80K or 90K like we did on the Gutierrez house, then it just makes more sense to kind of collect that capital. But the biggest thing I look for in rentals is the location, the square footage of it, rental comps, and then just the appreciation of that area. If it's an area that I don't personally like or I'm not too familiar with, I would always just opt in to flip the house, which is why we did the one in Gutierrez, Arizona. It's about an hour from us. I just didn't know the area too well, and I found I just thought it was just going to be a better opportunity to flip it. Now, if something comes up in the East Valley or somewhere where I know it's an appreciating area, I will 100% try my best to buy and hold that property. And then also the rental comps, you want to make sure it's like this is going to be a good cash flowing property. And what I mean by square footage is there's a sweet spot to I think the best ROI, where if you have too big of a house, you're going to be spending so much money on just buying it that the cash flow is not going to be there. But if you hit a sweet spot for Arizona, for me, it's like anywhere between 12 to 1,800 square feet. I find those to be the best ROI on cash flowing rental properties. So if that fits that criteria of square footage, location, I'll try my best to hold it. At the end of the day, for me, it's all about, these flips are just about building capital so I can just buy more properties to buy and hold and rent out and cash flow passive income. So that's a good question.
I thought
I covered it.
Yeah, I thought it would have been interesting, as there's a couple of you that might be watching this video that might be ready to flip their first house or buy their first house or rent their first house out, right? So I thought that would be interesting to understand the reason why someone does something, and Nick does all three, where he sees, represents agents or represents individuals as an agent that are looking into buying their first house. He has a series of different rentals, but as well as he flips properties. So I think it's very important to always have a proper intent behind an investment decision. So again, like we said, if you have any questions that you would like answered in future videos, all you have to do is comment them down below. But if you have questions because you're interested in actually getting started in real estate right now, whether that's buying your first property, investing in your first property, and or looking for a rental, I'm going to put his Instagram down below. And again, don't just comment, but DM him. He responds to all of his direct messages, and you guys can message me if he doesn't, and I'll hold them accountable. But DM him if you guys have any questions about getting started in real estate and actually getting started, being connected with lenders, being connected with an agent, even if it's not him. What about different areas in Arizona? When I tell you that this guy is on the MLS and on Zillow and those type of websites as much as the average person is on social media, I'm not lying, right? So again, his link is going to be down below. Make sure you message him, and I hope that this video got you one step closer to your overall goal. And if it did, make sure you smash that like button. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take it easy, team.